and on the evening of September 23rd, John Paul discovers a large merchant convoy off the eastern coast of England. Guarding the convoy was the brand new 44-gun HMS Serapis. John Paul immediately gives the order for his fleet to follow him in attacking the Serapis head-on, but the captain of the Alliance, who remember hated John Paul, refused, thinking it was a dumb idea, and instead splits off and targets the support ships. No matter, Jones was determined, and the Richard barrels headfirst towards the Serapis. As night falls, the two ships finally drift within firing range, and John Paul gives the signal to attack. Immediately, cannons aboard the Bonhomme Richard explode in a fiery fury, but not in the way John Paul wanted. See, wanting some bigger guns than the French had initially given him, John Paul had purchased some at a discount from a scrapyard. Well, turns out these cannons were in the scrapyard for a reason, and many of them exploded on their first use, killing many of John Paul's gunners. The Serapis, on the other hand, had no such issue, and began unloading a heavy barrage into the now smoking Bonhomme Richard. Seeing his crew begin to panic, John Paul rushes to one of the few remaining cannons and begins desperately firing it at the British ship. He realizes that if things continue this way, they'll all be blown to bits. He needs to do something, and quick, so he shouts for his men to prepare to board and gives the command to ram the ship. The Bonhomme Richard crashes headfirst into the stern of the Serapis. The British captain, seeing the ravaged American ship up close, mockingly shouts, "Ha! Are you surrendering?" To which John Paul shouts back, "I have not yet begun to fight!" The ships detach, and again the Serapis unloads another lethal barrage into the Richard, punching massive holes below its waterline. The situation aboard the American ship turns desperate. The Richard is taking on water fast, and between shots of his own cannon and pistol, John Paul orders for another attempt to bring the ship within boarding range. Just when all hope looks lost for John Paul, rigging on the two ships become intertwined and they slam into each other broadside to broadside. Now unable to escape, the British fire their cannons directly into the Richard, blasting more holes through the sinking ship. John Paul sends his men up the masts with grape shot and grenades and orders them to begin picking off the British sailors on deck. The Americans are barely holding on when suddenly things get even worse.